You ever have one of those moments where something so small, so seemingly insignificant, flips a switch in your brain? That was me, sitting at a dinner table in the suburbs pretending to enjoy roasted chicken and overcooked green beans when my entire reality shifted because of a stupid necklace. It was a Saturday evening, one of those warm, lazy summer nights where you can smell the barbecue from 3 houses down and the cicadas don't shut up for anything. Maddie and I were at her aunt's house, packed shoulder to shoulder with her extended family, cousins I could barely keep straight, a couple of loud uncles who always drank too much, and a handful of kids running around the backyard screaming like banshees. I'd been to a dozen of these dinners over the years. They were routine, predictable, almost boring. But this one would stay burned in my memory for the rest of my life. It started innocently enough. We just sat down at the table, everyone filling their plates, passing dishes left and right, making the usual small talk, work, traffic. Have you seen that new show on Netflix? I wasn't really paying attention. I'd had a long week and my brain felt like it was stuck in molasses. But then Maddie leaned forward to grab a bottle of sparkling water and something caught my eye. A silver pendant. It hung just below her collarbone, delicate and simple, a flat, oval shape on a thin chain. I'd never seen it before. Not once. And I knew Maddie's jewelry. She wasn't flashy, but she had her staples. A thin gold bracelet her mom gave her when she graduated college. A pair of stud earrings I bought her last Christmas. But this was different. I leaned in slightly, squinting. There were initials engraved on the surface, JD. I froze. Hey, I said quietly, trying not to interrupt the flow of conversation. When did you get that necklace? Maddie looked up at me a fraction too long before answering. Her hand instinctively went to her chest, brushing the pendant as if she'd forgotten it was there. She laughed a sharp and practiced and said, "This? You're just noticing it now." "Yeah. Never seen it before." Her smile tightened. "Oh my God, Brian, are you seriously getting jealous over a piece of jewelry?" She glanced around the table, voice a little louder now. "Guys, can we all just take a second to appreciate how possessive someone's getting over here?" Her cousin Amy jumped in. "Oh, Brian's entering his suspicious boyfriend era." Laughter rippled around the table. Maddie leaned into it like it was all some inside joke. She nudged me with her elbow. "Relax, babe. It's just a necklace. I found it in an old drawer and thought it looked cute. Didn't know I needed permission." I forced a smile, nodded like I was playing along, but something inside me recoiled. I didn't believe her. I didn't know why exactly. Maybe it was the way her fingers curled around the pendant like she was protecting it. Or the pause before she answered. Or the way she recognized the moment, deflected the question and turned it into a joke to shut down any follow-up. But it worked. Everyone moved on just like that. Her uncle asked about the playoff game. Her aunt offered more bread. Even Amy changed the subject to some vacation she was planning. And I just sat there, my appetite gone, the air around me suddenly too thick. I kept glancing at the pendant. JD, who the hell was JD? It wasn't anyone in her family, that much I knew. I'd been to enough of these gatherings to recognize the entire dysfunctional cast. Her dad's name was Carl. Her brother was Nate. Her closest friends were Emily, Sarah, and a guy named Connor. None of them matched the initials. So why was she wearing something that looked like it was made for her, given to her? I started running through scenarios in my head. Maybe it was a relative. A family friend. A coincidence. But I'd seen Maddie's style long enough to know that everything she wore, even the simplest things, had meaning. Nothing was random with her. And this necklace? It didn't look like something she picked up at Target or found in some drawer like she claimed. It looked intentional. The rest of the dinner blurred into static after that. People kept talking, eating, laughing, but it all sounded far away. I just sat there, picking at my food, nodding occasionally, pretending to be present. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. Looking back, it wasn't just the necklace. That was just the spark that lit a fire I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. The truth is, something had felt off for months. Not dramatic, not obvious, just off. Late nights at work. Her phone suddenly always face down. Vague answers when I asked about her day. Excuses that didn't quite add up. At the time, I chalked it up to stress, changes at her job, burnout. I told myself I was being paranoid. But that night, watching her laugh with everyone at the table while that silver pendant rested like a secret against her skin, something inside me froze. I started noticing everything in sharper focus. The way she avoided my eyes every time she touched the necklace. The forced way she smiled when I tried to joke with her later. How she stayed glued to her phone once we moved to the patio for dessert, texting someone with her back turned to me. I felt like a guest in my own relationship. After dinner, I made an excuse, said I wasn't feeling great and that I'd catch a cab home early. Maddie didn't protest. In fact, she barely looked up from her screen. As I walked out, I paused on the sidewalk, the soft clatter of silverware and laughter echoing from inside. The smell of summer was everywhere, honey's asteriskal, barbecue, someone's citronella candle, but it didn't touch me. I felt cold, disoriented, like I'd stepped out of my own life and was watching it from the outside. I didn't go home. Instead, I booked a room at a cheap airport motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like cleaning solution and old cigarette smoke, but at least it was quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just staring at the wall. That necklace, those 2 letters had unraveled everything. 3 years of memories, birthdays, holidays, inside jokes, late-night talks, all of it now cast in doubt by 2 tiny engraved initials. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't asking if something was wrong. I was asking how long it had been. The motel room was silent, save for the buzz of the ancient air conditioner groaning under the weight of a late summer night. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, jacket still buttoned, feeling like a man who had wandered into someone else's life and couldn't find the exit. I should have been home with Maddie, watching something dumb on TV and arguing over which takeout place we'd order from. But instead, I was here, miles from our apartment, replaying everything I thought I knew about my relationship, my partner, my reality. The silver pendant, those 2 stupid initials, JD, they weren't just a clue. They were a crack in the dam I'd been pretending wasn't leaking for months. I couldn't stop myself. Once that door opened, every little memory, every weird moment I had pushed aside, came rushing back in like a flood. And once it started, I couldn't unsee it. The first thing that hit me was her phone. About 6 months ago, she changed her passcode. She told me it was because her company had new security rules. I didn't question it. But then I started noticing how the phone was always face down. Always. Even when we were alone. Even when she went to shower, she'd grab it and tuck it under her clothes or slide it into the drawer of her nightstand like it was radioactive. I remember one night when it buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at it out of habit and she nearly sprinted across the room to snatch it up. Told me it was just work. But her eyes gave her away. She didn't look angry. She looked scared. Then there were the Friday nights. Maddie had never been the type to stay late at the office. But around February, project deadlines suddenly started cropping up, always on Fridays. At first, I didn't think much of it. But week after week, she'd come home late, looking exhausted but somehow excited. Like she'd just stepped out of some movie. Her lipstick would be fresher than it should have been after a full workday. She'd hum to herself while washing her face, smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. And when I asked how work had gone, she'd say, "Ugh, long day," and change the subject. There was also the cologne. That memory came to me around 3 a.m. when I couldn't keep still and had started pacing the threadbare carpet. It was subtle, but it hit me like ****** punch. One night in early spring, she came home and hugged me, and there it was. A scent I didn't recognize. Rich, expensive. Not the deodorant and coffee smell of her usual coworkers. This was something deliberate. I asked about it and she brushed it off. Said she sat next to a client all day who wore the most ridiculous cologne. At the time, I laughed. Now, I felt sick. But the final nail in the coffin? The calendar entry. A month ago, I was trying to book us a weekend trip and pulled up the shared calendar on our laptop. She didn't know I still used it, thought we'd abandoned it months ago when we switched phones. But there it was, a gray, private entry marked for a Saturday evening. No location. Just JD. I asked her about it casually, playing dumb. She said it was a reminder to follow up with a client from work. Janine Daniels, she said without blinking. But I couldn't find anyone with that name on her company website. I let it go back then. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just buried it under the pile of things I was too afraid to dig into. Because the truth was, I didn't want to know. That night in the motel, with the hum of the AC and the cheap lamp buzzing overhead, I realized something that made my chest cave in. I had seen all of this before. Not just these signs, this pattern. My dad used to say that trust wasn't a switch you flipped on and off. It was a slow burn, something built over time, brick by brick. But lies? Lies were like termites. They ate away at the foundation until one day everything just collapsed. And you'd sit there in the rubble wondering how you didn't see it coming. Except I had seen it coming. I just didn't want to believe it. Maddie wasn't who I thought she was anymore. Or maybe she never was. Maybe I had built up a version of her in my head that she couldn't or wouldn't live up to. Maybe I loved that version more than the real person. But love, real love, is supposed to hold up under pressure. It's supposed to be rooted in truth. And this? This was a house built on air. I kept pacing back and forth across that motel carpet, the corners of the room growing darker as the sun started rising behind the curtains. I didn't know what to do yet. I didn't know if I wanted a confrontation, a confession, or just an exit. But what I did know was this: the necklace wasn't an accident. It was a message. Maybe not for me, but a message nonetheless. No one wears something that personal without it meaning something. You don't casually drape someone else's initials over your heart unless there's a reason. It wasn't just a piece of silver. It was proof. The rest of that night passed in a fog. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My body felt like it had been filled with static, all nerves and electricity. My heart was thudding in my chest like it was trying to break out. Around 6, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I remember thinking how dull the paint was, how someone had patched a crack in the drywall but never bothered to repaint. I fixated on that crack like it was a metaphor. Because that was us. Patched over. Not fixed. Maddie and I had problems before all this. Arguments. Distance. But we'd always found a way back to each other. Or so I thought. Now I wasn't sure if we'd been drifting apart slowly or if she'd just jumped ship without telling me. When I finally stood up, I felt like a different person. Not just tired or heartbroken. Changed. Like something inside me had cracked open and all the denial had leaked out, replaced by something colder. Not anger yet. Not even grief. Just the heavy, sober weight of knowing the person you love has been carrying someone else's secrets in their pocket. And you're the last one to know. I didn't go back to the apartment right away. I checked out of the motel just after sunrise and drove around aimlessly for a while, letting the roads unwind beneath me while my thoughts stayed tangled. I passed the same gas station twice, the same diner 3 times. I couldn't bring myself to go home, not yet. Not because I was afraid of a confrontation. Maddie wasn't even there. She had told me she was spending the day with her sister, a plan she'd mentioned in passing earlier that week. No, I wasn't avoiding her. I was avoiding the silence. The kind of silence that forces you to see things for what they are. Eventually, sometime after 10 a.m., I pulled into the underground lot beneath our apartment. It felt strange being there alone. My building, my space, yet I felt like I didn't belong anymore. Like I was trespassing on a life that used to be mine. The elevator smelled like stale perfume and takeout. I tapped the key fob and rode up in silence. When the doors opened, the hallway felt unusually still. I stood in front of our door for a few seconds, key in hand, suddenly nervous. But I wasn't coming back home. I was coming to look at it with new eyes. I stepped inside quietly, instinctively careful, like the apartment itself could hear me. The air inside felt off, like someone had opened the windows but forgot to let the breeze in. That smell was there again, faint but unmistakable. It wasn't mine. Not our detergent, not her shampoo. No, it was someone else's cologne. Expensive. Bold. I closed the door behind me and just stood there, letting my senses adjust. Then I started searching. Not tearing the place apart, just moving deliberately, room by room, like a detective at a crime scene who already knew the outcome. I wasn't looking to prove anything anymore. I just wanted to know how bad it really was. How deep it went. And if there was any truth left in the place we used to call ours. The living room looked the same at first glance. Throw pillows, coffee table, her latest plant purchase perched on the windowsill. But when I glanced toward the kitchen, something caught my eye: 2 wine glasses by the sink. Still wet, barely rinsed. Not in the dishwasher. Not left from the night before. I hadn't been home. And Maddie sure as hell hadn't told me she'd had anyone over. I walked to the sink, leaned in. One of the glasses had a faint red ring at the bottom, wine, not juice. The other had a smudge of something near the rim. Lip balm maybe. Maybe not hers. I didn't touch them. Didn't need to. Next, I walked into the kitchen and opened the garbage can. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe? Inside were 2 paper napkins, a cork, and tucked low like it had been intentionally stuffed out of sight, a used takeout container from a restaurant across town. One of those places you don't DoorDash. You go to. You sit at. We hadn't been there in over a year. But the receipt was still inside, crumpled at the bottom of the bag. 2 entrees. 1 dessert. She hated dessert. The bathroom was next. Nothing obvious. Her things were lined up the way she always kept them, perfectly spaced, color-coded, neat like a showroom. But something on the edge of the sink caught my eye. A single, dark strand of hair. Shorter than hers. Darker. I stared at it for a long time before flicking it into the trash. In our bedroom, the sun poured in through the blinds, casting soft stripes across the comforter we picked out together last winter. I sat down on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. It still smelled like her. Lavender and coconut with something sharper beneath it now. I turned my head toward the chair in the corner, the one that always collected our laundry, her bags, the occasional hoodie of mine. Draped over the back was a jacket. A men's athletic jacket. Definitely not mine. It wasn't even close. Different brand, different size, different style. Too new to be forgotten. Too casually placed to be a mistake. It didn't look like something Maddie would borrow. It looked like something someone had worn and left behind. Like someone had made themselves at home. I stood, walked over, and inspected it. Pockets empty. No name tag. But the scent was there again, stronger this time. I didn't recognize the brand, but it smelled like expensive cologne and arrogance. I let it hang there, untouched. I didn't want to take anything. I just wanted to see it with my own eyes. That's when I noticed the nightstand. On her side, not mine. Half tucked under a magazine was a box of condoms. Open. Missing several. Maddie and I hadn't used those in over a year. We were in a long-term rhythm. Birth control pills, familiar timing. We didn't need them. I opened the drawer. Inside, a book of matches, a receipt from a wine bar, and a lighter I didn't recognize. Brushed metal. Heavy. Monogrammed with a single engraved letter J. I didn't know what it stood for, but it sure as hell didn't stand for me. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just stood there, one hand on the drawer, letting it all sink in. The jacket. The condoms. The wine glasses. The smell. The silence. It wasn't even about catching her anymore. She was already gone. She'd just forgotten to leave. I walked back to the living room, grabbed the duffel bag I'd brought in small, just enough for a few changes of clothes. I packed deliberately. Nothing sentimental. No frame photos. Just my essentials, laptop, passport, work files, a hoodie. The basics. I didn't leave a note. Didn't slam the door. I locked it behind me the way I always had. Out of habit. As I walked down the hallway, I didn't feel angry. Not yet. That would come later, I was sure. Right now, I just felt empty. Like I'd stepped out of my life and closed the door on it. The thing is, people always imagine betrayal as some dramatic, fiery explosion, yelling, sobbing, accusations hurled like grenades. But in reality, it's quiet. It's a cold realization in an empty room where everything looks the same but feels completely different. It's a wine glass by the sink. A jacket over a chair. A drawer with someone else's lighter in it. It's silence where love used to live. I took the elevator back down, past the front desk, and stepped out into the heat of the afternoon. The city buzzed around me, people living their lives unaware that mine had just cracked in half. I didn't look back, because there was nothing there for me anymore. 3 days passed in a blur. I crashed at a friend's spare room the first night, then booked an extended stay suite by the river. It was one of those corporate setups, cold furniture, a kitchenette no one used, a TV bolted to the dresser. But it had clean sheets and no trace of Maddie. That was enough. I didn't go to work. I didn't tell anyone except my boss that I'd be taking a few days for personal reasons. He didn't ask questions and I was grateful. I wouldn't have had the words anyway. Mostly, I just sat there in the room, not even watching TV, just existing. Some men spiral into anger. Some drink. I didn't do either. I just went quiet. Because what do you do when your life, your supposed safe place, turns out to be an illusion? I stared at the ceiling a lot. Thought about all the little things I didn't notice before. The way she always forgot to sync her calendar. The one time I saw a name pop up on her phone, James D., and she said it was a temp from work. How she suddenly had a second gym bag but insisted it was just an extra. I'd excused everything. Shrugged it off. Because love makes you do that. You don't want to believe the person next to you in bed is lying to your face. You build this whole architecture of trust and then one engraved necklace drops a wrecking ball through the foundation. Then, on the 4th day, it arrived. No return address. Just a plain white envelope slid under the door while I was in the shower. For a second, I thought it might be hotel junk mail or an invoice. But when I picked it up, the paper was thick, too thick, and I knew. Inside was a single photo. It had been taken during dinner at her aunt's house just a few days ago. The same night I saw the necklace. In the picture, Maddie was laughing, head tilted back, hair caught in mid-movement. And next to her, partially cut off, was a man I didn't recognize. His posture casual, arm draped over the back of her chair, his hand resting on her shoulder. It wasn't a romantic pose, not overtly. But the familiarity in it hit me like a gut punch. They looked comfortable. Like they'd done this before. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in clean, slanted handwriting, not hers, was a time and place. Café Levant. Thursday. 5:30 p.m. Come alone. No explanation. No threat. Just a directive. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, burn the photo, block her number, and disappear into a different zip code. But a bigger part, the part that had been awake every night since I left, needed closure. Not because I wanted her back. Not because I believed she'd explain it all away. I just needed to hear her say it. So I went. Café Levant was a small Mediterranean spot tucked between a yoga studio and a florist. Maddie and I had eaten there once, early in our relationship. She liked their lamb kebabs. I remembered that stupid detail as I pulled into the lot and saw her already sitting at a table by the window. She looked put together. Too much so. Red lipstick. Hair curled. The same necklace, the one with the JD pendant, was visible, resting proudly on her collarbone like it had earned its place there. I walked in. She stood as I approached, offering a soft smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hi," she said, like we were old friends meeting for coffee. I didn't return the smile. I just sat down. She didn't waste time. I figured if I didn't reach out, you'd never give me a chance to explain. You figured right. A pause. She picked up her water glass, took a sip, then set it down too gently. "You found the jacket?" I nodded once. She inhaled, then said, "Okay. So you know." "I know enough," I said. "But now I want to hear it from you." Maddie glanced out the window, then back at me. Her voice, when it came, was strangely calm. "I've been seeing someone else. A few people, actually. On and off. Since January." My heart didn't drop. It didn't even stutter. I think it had already been bracing for impact. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because I wanted to." I blinked. "I thought maybe you'd lie," I said. "Make excuses. Say it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," she said, looking me square in the eyes. "It was deliberate. Every time." She said it like she was telling me she'd tried a new wine. Like this was some experiment. "I loved you," I said. I didn't mean it to sound wounded. It just came out like a fact. "I know you did," she said. "And I appreciated it." Appreciated? Like I was a generous tip at a restaurant. "I wasn't unhappy," she added, almost defensively. "That's not what this was about?" "Then what was it about?" She hesitated, swirling her straw in the glass. "I think I got bored." The words were so casual I actually laughed, not out of humor. More like disbelief. "Bored?" She nodded. "You were steady. Predictable. Safe. And I needed something else. Something that made me feel alive." I shook my head. "So you slept with other men?" "Don't act surprised," she said. "You had to have felt it. The distance." "I felt it. I just didn't know you were measuring it in bodies." She flinched, the first real emotion I'd seen on her face all day. Good. She deserved worse. Was one of them JD? Yes. And the others? She shrugged. "Does it matter?" I looked at her then, really looked at her, and realized the person I fell in love with no longer existed. If she ever had. This woman across from me wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even conflicted. She had made peace with her betrayal long before I even smelled the smoke. "You don't look sorry." "I'm not," she said. "Not in the way you want me to be." "Then why call me here?" "I don't know," she said after a moment. "I guess part of me thought you deserved to hear it in person." "You think that's closure?" "I think it's honesty." "No," I said, pushing my chair back. "It's just cruelty dressed up as clarity." I stood. Maddie didn't follow me. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just sat there, spinning the necklace between her fingers like it was some kind of trophy. And I walked away. Out of the cafe. Out of that part of my life. I didn't look back. Because some doors, once shut, don't deserve to be opened again. I thought that was the end of it. I really believed walking out of that cafe, hearing Maddie admit to it all without a hint of shame, was the last time she'd be able to hurt me. I'd accepted the betrayal. I'd stepped away from the wreckage. I thought all that was left was to sweep up the pieces and slowly move on. Turns out I was wrong. Maddie wasn't done. Not by a long sh*t. It started about 2 weeks later. I was still living out of that extended stay hotel near the river, using the gym to stay sane, getting back into work just to distract myself. Life was quiet. Lonely, sure, but peaceful in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Then one afternoon I got a voicemail from an unknown number. "Hi Mr. Whitaker, this is Elise with Clearwater Insurance. We're just following up on your recent claim. The payout has been successfully processed and transferred to the account on file. Please give us a call back if you have any questions. Thanks." Payout? I stared at my phone. I hadn't filed any claim. I called back immediately. A customer service rep pulled up the record, cheerful and professional, until I told her I didn't submit anything. She paused. "You didn't initiate the claim?" "No," I said. "What was the claim about?" She explained that a disability benefit tied to a supplemental workplace insurance policy I'd signed up for 2 years ago had been activated using medical documentation and personal verification. The payout, just over $18,000. I froze. That policy had been dormant for years. I barely remembered signing the paperwork. Can you tell me where the funds were sent? I asked. She hesitated. Sir, I'm not sure I can disclose that without going through identity verification. Run it. We went through the whole song and dance. Social, driver's license, last 4 digits of the policy number. Finally, she gave me the account info. It wasn't mine. The account didn't match anything I owned. Different bank. Different routing number. Completely unfamiliar. But the name on the recipient profile? Madison L. Drake. Maddie. I hung up, heart pounding, and logged into my bank. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then I opened my work documents. I'd saved the original insurance enrollment forms in a Google Drive folder, just in case. What I found made my stomach twist. The signature on the new claim matched mine. Perfectly. But it wasn't mine. Someone had forged it. I printed the documents out, highlighted the discrepancies, and drove straight to the nearest branch of the insurance office. I wasn't about to let this turn into some she said mess. An investigator met with me the next day. I brought everything, the emails, the payout record, the original application from 2 years ago. Within 20 minutes, they agreed something was off. And then it got worse. The investigator, a woman named Marla, asked if I'd ever heard of a company called Havenrock Limited. No, I said. Should I have? She pulled up a screen and turned it toward me. Your insurance claim was processed through this entity, she said. It appears to be a shell company. The account where the payout had landed was tied to Havenrock. Registered under a tax ID created just 2 months earlier. Owner? Madison Drake. Looks like she set this up to collect the payment without it drawing attention, Marla said. I sat there, numb. So she created a fake business to steal from me? That's what it looks like, she said. This wasn't just a mistake. It was planned. I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak. Because here's the thing, infidelity, as brutal as it is, still feels emotional. It's messy, personal, tangled in feelings and hormones and regret. But this was clinical. This was strategy. Maddie hadn't just lied to me or betrayed me or slept with other men. She'd studied me, watched me, waited for the moment she could use me. That realization felt like ice in my veins. I filed a formal fraud complaint with the insurance company, then contacted the police to submit a report. I brought copies of everything to a financial crimes division in the city. The detective assigned to my case, an older guy named Ruben, told me they'd need time to trace the account and determine if it crossed into felony territory. She's smart, he said, flipping through the documents. But not that smart. Fake companies leave trails. You don't get to siphon money under someone else's name and walk away clean. I remember just staring at the table in that cold little interview room, trying to wrap my head around the fact that someone I had once shopped for groceries with had committed identity theft against me. It wasn't about the money. Not really. It was the planning. She'd waited. She'd timed it. She used my trust like a crowbar. For her, it wasn't betrayal. It was opportunity. I went home, or rather back to the hotel, and just sat there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this deep, hollow ache in my chest. Not grief. Not even rage. Just disappointment. Not just in her. In myself. Because I'd let it happen. I had ignored every sign. Every moment my gut had spoken up. I'd chosen silence over suspicion. Love over logic. And I paid the price. I updated all my passwords, locked down my credit, and filed a temporary freeze with the bank. Ruben told me it might take weeks to fully untangle the shell company. He said if they could prove malicious intent, Maddie could be charged with wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. All of it. Don't expect a courtroom breakdown, he warned. If she's done this before, she's practiced. And people like her? They usually run when the heat shows up. I asked what he meant. You'd be surprised how many of these cases end with someone disappearing. New name, new state, new life. He said it like he'd seen it happen 100 times. And something in me knew. Maybe Maddie was already gone.